The cold, early morning wind cut Hannah's skin like small, invisible blades. Huddled under an awning, she tried to find some comfort in the piece of cardboard she used as a mattress. The thin blanket she had no longer kept out the city's cold, and hunger made her stomach protest in loud growls. But she was used to it. She had learned long ago to ignore pain and need. The street was cruel, a place where dignity was lost amidst indifferent looks, where people passed by without even realizing that someone like her existed. But that night, something different caught her attention. A faint, almost imperceptible sound mixed with the distant noise of cars and the whistling of the wind. A cry. Hannah frowned and stood up slowly, hugging her body to try to contain the cold. The cry seemed to be coming from a dark alley a few meters away. Her heart beat faster. Was it possible? Who would leave a baby crying in the middle of the night? Her bare feet touched the icy asphalt as she walked hesitantly toward the sound. The alley was one of those places that any sane person would avoid. But Hannah no longer feared anything. When she approached, she found a dirty, crumpled cardboard box next to a dumpster. The crying was faint, almost a wail of despair. With shaking hands, she opened the flap of the box and held her breath. Inside, wrapped in a thin, dirty cloth, was a small baby, her face red from the cold, her eyes closed as if begging for warmth. Her tiny body trembled nonstop. Hannah put her hand to her mouth, trying to hold back a sob. Who would have the courage to abandon a child like that? Her eyes scanned the small space around her, as if expecting to find someone nearby, but the street was deserted. It was then that she noticed a crumpled note inside the box. She picked up the piece of paper and read the words written in hurried handwriting. "Forgive me. I'm not able to raise my daughter. I am not strong enough, nor do I have the resources. Take care of her if you can." The message was short, but it carried a crushing weight. Hannah felt her chest tighten. Who could have written that? A desperate mother? Someone who, like her, had lost everything? The baby let out a louder wail, and Hannah realized that she was weak, probably having not fed in hours. Her heart raced. What should she do? Should she take her to a hospital? Call the police? But what if they just put the baby in an orphanage or something worse? She looked around again, as if expecting the mother to suddenly appear and take the child back. But no one did. Hannah swallowed hard. She couldn't just leave her there. Carefully, she picked the baby up, feeling the cold little body against her skin. Instinctively, she pulled on her own old coat and wrapped the baby in it, trying to transfer some of her own body heat. "Chill. It's okay, little one. I'm here." The simple act of holding her sent a wave of emotions over Hannah. It had been so long since she had felt something like this. A sense of responsibility, a reason to keep going. But she still didn't know what to do. Her stomach was empty. She had no roof over her head, not even a penny in her pocket. How could she take care of a baby? Yet, as she held her in her arms, she felt something different, as if, for the first time in years, she was no longer alone. The baby snuggled against her chest, and Hannah closed her eyes for a moment, feeling the tears welling up. She didn't know how, but she would do whatever it took to protect that child. The icy wind continued to howl through the dark city streets as Hannah held the baby against her chest, trying to warm her with her own body. Her heart was beating fast. She had never held a baby so small before, and the weight of that responsibility seemed to crush her. But here, in the middle of that cold night, there was no choice. She had to act. With quick steps, she left the alley, hugging the child close to her body. Her protective instincts spoke louder. The girl, still fragile, let out small whimpers, but seemed to calm down in the warmth of Hannah's embrace. She looked around. Where could she go? Hospitals and police stations seemed the most obvious options, but something inside her hesitated. What if they took the baby to an orphanage? What if they put her in the hands of someone who wouldn't treat her well? Hannah knew stories like that. She had seen the system swallow children, treating them like numbers, and she couldn't bear the thought of that little life ending without love, without anyone who truly cared. A terrifying thought crossed her mind. What if no one wanted that girl? She took a deep breath, ignoring the fear that was creeping into her mind. First, she needed to find a warm place. His first instinct was to go to the little market where, on Thursdays, some kind people were leaving food donations for the homeless. But today wasn't Thursday. Could she get anything? When she reached the small establishment, she noticed that the store was already closed, but a dim light shone in the back. Hannah hesitated for a moment before knocking lightly on the side door. After a few seconds, the door creaked and a familiar face appeared. Maggie, a middle-aged woman who ran the store, looked at her with surprise and suspicion. "Hannah, what are you doing here at this hour?" Hannah opened her jacket a little, revealing the sleeping baby. I found this little girl. She was abandoned. She needs food, milk, anything I can give her." Maggie's eyes widened. "Oh my God, a baby? Here." "Yes, please. She's hungry. I can't leave her like this." The woman hesitated for a moment, but then stepped back and motioned for Hannah to come in. "Come on, hurry up." The warm atmosphere of the small grocery store made Hannah shiver as she realized how cold she was. Maggie hurried to a shelf and grabbed a bottle, some formula, and a few disposable diapers. "Here, it's not much, but it'll help." Hannah took the items gratefully, feeling her eyes well up with tears. "Thanks. I don't know what to do, Maggie. I should take her somewhere, but what if she ends up somewhere worse?" Maggie sighed, crossing her arms. "Hannah, you have your own problems. You can't just go out and raise a child out of nowhere." "I know, but what if no one else cares for her? What if she ends up alone, just like me?" Silence hung in the air. Maggie had no answer for that. The baby began to stir and make small, hungry sounds. Hannah looked down at the still dry bottle in her hands. "Can you help me prepare this?" Maggie wordlessly took the bottle and, in a few minutes, filled it with warm milk. Hannah sat on the floor, supporting the baby in her arms and offering the nipple of the bottle. The little girl sucked the milk hard, as if her life depended on it. And in a way it did. Hannah observed every detail of the baby's delicate little face. She had already made her choice, even if she didn't want to admit it yet. From that moment on, she would protect that child at any cost. The baby fell asleep in Hannah's arms, satisfied by the warm milk. Her serene little face contrasted with the agitation inside the woman's heart. She still didn't know what to do the next day, but right then, in that moment, she was sure that she wouldn't abandon her. Maggie watched in silence, her arms crossed. After a few moments, she let out a heavy sigh and walked to a metal cabinet, grabbing an old blanket and a package of cookies. "You need a place to spend the night. I can't leave you here, but there's a shed behind the market. No one will bother you there." Hannah looked up, surprised. "Maggie, thank you." The woman just shook her head. "I don't know what you're up to, Hannah, but if you're going to go through with this, you need to think about the future. Taking care of a baby is a lot harder than you think." Hannah didn't answer. She knew that. But what else could she do? Leave the baby? No. She knew what it was like to be left behind. Carefully, she picked up the few items she had been given and headed for the back of the store. The warehouse was small and cold, but at least they would be protected from the biting early morning wind. With the baby snuggled against her chest, Hannah let her thoughts take her back to the past. 6 years ago, Hannah's life was completely different. She had a home. She had a husband. She had dreams. Lucas, her husband, was a kind man. They met at a cafe where she worked as a waitress. Lucas always made a point of sitting at the same table, complimenting her smile and leaving generous tips. One day, he finally got the courage to ask her out. That was the beginning of everything. Their love grew quickly, and soon they were married, making plans for the future. They talked about having children, traveling, building a close-knit family. Hannah felt safe in his arms, as if nothing in the world could shake what they had. But then the accident happened. A phone call, a hospital, a doctor speaking words that seemed unreal. "We're so sorry, Mrs. Hannah. Your husband didn't survive his injuries." Her world fell apart. The next few days were a blur. The silence in the house without Lucas was unbearable. His pillow still smelled like him, but soon everything started to fade. The pain was accompanied by financial problems. The bills piled up. Hannah tried to hold on, but without Lucas's salary, the situation became unbearable. She lost her job, then her apartment, and then she lost everything. At first, she stayed at a friend's house. But time passed, and Hannah realized that she was a burden. One day, she packed her things and left without warning. She didn't want to be a burden for no one. And then she went out into the street. The first few days were the worst. The hunger was cruel, the cold relentless. But the worst of all was the loneliness. Seeing people pass by her without even looking her in the eye. She learned to survive, but not to live. Back to the present. Hannah blinked a few times, pushing away the memories. She looked at the baby's sleeping face. She too had been abandoned to the world, just like Hannah. With a deep sigh, she ran her fingers through the child's hair. "I don't know your name, but I promise I'll take care of you." Deep down, she knew her life would never be the same again. Dawn arrived slowly, tinting the sky with orange hues. Hannah blinked a few times, feeling her body ache from the hard floor of the shed. During the night, she woke up several times just to check if the baby was still there, breathing peacefully. That tiny, defenseless creature now depended completely on her. The baby began to move, letting out small moans. Hannah gently ran her hand over her little face and smiled without realizing it. "Good morning, little one." The baby's eyes slowly opened. For a moment, Hannah found herself lost in those bright, innocent eyes. "You need a name?" she murmured, thinking aloud. Maggie arrived shortly after, carrying a small bag. "I brought a few things. Some diapers, a clean set of clothes, and some milk." Hannah took the items gratefully. "I don't know how to thank you," Maggie sighed, crossing her arms. "You need a plan, Hannah. Taking care of a baby like that, with no place to live, that's not going to be easy." Hannah looked down at the baby in her arms and swallowed hard. She knew that, but when she saw the little girl snuggling in her lap, she realized something she hadn't felt since she lost everything. Purpose. "She needs me. And maybe I need her too." Maggie watched her for a moment and then smiled slightly. "What are you going to name her?" Hannah looked down at the baby's face again. "Lily." The name came naturally, as if it had always belonged to that little life. "Lily, that's a beautiful name." Maggie nodded. Hannah settled the baby in her arms. "Hi, Lily. I'm your mommy now." The words came out before she could think. Mommy. Could it be possible? After everything she'd lost, everything she'd suffered, could she possibly be a mother again? Lily let out a soft sound and smiled. That was enough for Hannah to make up her mind. She would protect Lily at all costs. The days passed faster than Hannah had imagined. Taking care of Lily was challenging, but somehow it made sense. She found small ways to get food and milk. Maggie, despite her tough exterior, helped whenever she could. Some nights, Hannah managed to sleep in a temporary shelter, where at least Lily could be protected from a cold. Even with the hardships, there was something new in her life. A reason to keep going. 7 years later, the sun was slowly setting on the horizon, spreading golden hues across the city. Lily, now 7, was happily running around the small park next to the coffee shop where Hannah worked. Her blonde hair bouncing as she laughed loudly, trying to catch a stray cat that was slinking between the benches. Hannah, sitting on a wooden bench, watched with a smile. How had time passed so quickly? She still remembered that night she had found Lily. Such a small, fragile life left behind. Now, the little girl was full of energy and joy. But something had been worrying her these past few days. A strange man had started to appear. At first, she thought it was a coincidence. A tall, well-dressed man, sitting a few tables away in the coffee shop. He was looking at Lily from a distance, as if trying to recognize something. Then he appeared in the park. He had been leaning against a lamppost, his eyes fixed on the girl as she played. Now he was there again. Hannah felt a shiver run down her spine. She stood up and went to Lily, calling her urgently. "Honey, let's go home. Now." Lily frowned. "But I'm not done playing." "Now, Lily." Hannah's voice came out firmer than she intended. She took her daughter's hand and walked quickly. As they passed the park exit, she felt an intense gaze on her. But she didn't turn around. What did this man want? The next morning, Hannah was cleaning one of the tables in the cafeteria when she heard the doorbell ring. She looked up, and her heart skipped a beat. It was him. The strange man approached slowly, his gaze serious and calculated. He put his hands in his pockets and spoke softly, as if he didn't want to draw attention to himself. "I'm sorry if I startled you. My name is Ryan. I need to talk to you about Lily." Hannah felt her stomach churn. "What do you want with my daughter?" Ryan hesitated before saying something that made Hannah's world spin. "I was hired to find her. Lily's biological family has been looking for her for years." Hannah's heart, she snapped. Biological family? She gripped the tablecloth tightly, trying to stay calm. But inside, everything seemed to be spinning. Why now? After all this time? She pulled out her chair and sat down slowly, her eyes fixed on Ryan, trying to read him. He seemed sincere, but Hannah knew that trusting strangers was a mistake. "You're wrong. Lily is my daughter." Ryan sighed, folding his hands on the table. "I understand that this is hard to hear, but I'm not here to hurt you. I need to talk to you. Tell you what, that they want to take my daughter away." Her voice was sharp. Ryan shook his head. "It's not that simple. Her family never knew she was born." Hannah frowned. "What do you mean by that?" Ryan took a deep breath, as if organizing his words. 7 years ago, a young woman named Olivia disappeared. She was the daughter of a very wealthy family. Her boyfriend, Ethan, was from a different social class, and her parents didn't accept the relationship. When they found out Olivia was pregnant, they tried to force her to leave him. But before they could do anything, she simply disappeared. Hannah felt a shiver run down her spine. What happened to her? Ryan looked down. She died in childbirth. The shock made Hannah lean back in her chair. "Oh my God," Ryan continued. "Olivia's family spent years searching for her, but they never knew she had the baby. They recently found out about the pregnancy and hired a private investigator to track down any clues as to what might have happened. That's how they found me." Hannah felt a lump tighten in her throat. "And how did you find me?" "The letter." She froze. "The letter that was with Lily, yes." The handwriting matched Olivia's. "The few records we got pointed to a nearby hospital where she might have given birth. I followed the traces, and I found you." Hannah felt her palms sweat. All this after so many years. "What does the family want?" she asked in a whisper. Ryan looked at her seriously. "Meet Lily." The words hung heavy in the air like a storm about to break. Hannah squeezed her eyes shut, feeling her chest ache. "They want Lily. What if I say no?" Ryan sighed. "I didn't come here to threaten you, Hannah. But they have resources, lawyers, and if they can prove that Lily is Olivia's daughter, they can claim custody." His words were a punch in the gut. They could take her away from her. Hannah took a deep breath, trying to calm her whirlwind of thoughts. Lily was everything to her. It didn't matter if they were blood relatives. Hannah was her mother. But did she have the right to deny Lily to the family that could perhaps offer her a better life? Tears filled her eyes. What to do? Silence hung in the air as Hannah tried to process everything she had just heard. Lily had a family, people who had been looking for her for years, people who had enough resources and power to take her from Hannah if they wanted. The thought made a chill run through her body. She couldn't lose her daughter. Ryan kept his gaze fixed on her, but there was no aggression in his expression. He seemed to understand what Hannah was feeling. What exactly do they want? His voice was weaker than he intended. They don't want to take you away from Lily, Hannah. They just want to get to know her. She let out a bitter laugh. And what happens then? Are they going to take her to a huge mansion, give her everything money can buy, and erase every trace of the life she had with me? Ryan folded his fingers on the table and spoke in a calmer tone. Olivia's family has made a lot of mistakes in the past. They took their daughter away from the man she loved, kept her from living her own life. When they found out what happened, they regretted it. But it was too late. Now, all they want is a chance to do the right thing. And the right thing is to take Lily away from me. Hannah's voice shook. Ryan shook his head. No, but shouldn't you at least let her know the family she has? Hannah's heart ached. She knew Lily deserved to know the truth. But what if they wanted to take her away after this? What if Lily wanted to go? She ran her hands over her face, trying to contain the wave of despair that threatened to take her over. I need time. I understand. Ryan nodded. But the decision needs to be made soon. Hannah just nodded. That night, she could barely sleep. Lily slept soundly beside her, her little face peaceful, completely oblivious to the hurricane that was about to hit her life. Hannah ran her fingers through her daughter's hair. 7 years. 7 years since that cold night, since she found that helpless little being inside a cardboard box. What if it had been the other way around? If she had been separated from Lily from the beginning? If someone had found her and raised her while Hannah spent her life searching for her? She wanted to believe that she would do everything in her power to at least see her one last time. Her chest tightened with the pain of the thought. The next morning, before Lily woke up, Hannah made her decision. She picked up her phone and sent a short text to Ryan. They can meet you, but on my terms. The reply came a few minutes later. Understood. I'll arrange the meeting. Hannah hung up the phone and took a deep breath. There was no turning back now. The day of the meeting came faster than Hannah would have liked. Ever since she had texted Ryan, time had seemed to pass in a strange way, as if the universe knew that her life was about to change irreversibly. She tried to act natural with Lily, but the girl was too smart not to notice something was wrong. Mommy, why are you so serious? Lily asked, picking at her breakfast without much interest. Hannah forced a smile. I'm just thinking about some things. Lily frowned. Good things or bad things? Hannah sighed. How could she explain to a 7-year-old that her entire life was about to change? I think it's a little bit of both. She reached out and took Lily's small hand. Daughter, there's something I need to tell you. Lily stared at her with wide eyes. What is it, Mommy? Fear tightened Hannah's chest. What if Lily got mad? What if she felt like she'd been fooled this whole time? But there was no way to run away anymore. Do you remember when I told you I found you when you were really little? Lily nodded, fiddling with the edge of her plate. I remember. You said I was a gift that showed up for you. Hannah felt a lump in her throat. And I still think that. But now, some people have shown up looking for you. People who love you, but who've never had the chance to meet you before. Lily tilted her head. Ooh. Hannah took a deep breath. Your biological family. Lily's eyes widened. Why my family? But you're my mother, right? Hannah held her daughter's hands. Always. Nothing will change that. But I wanted you to meet these people and learn a little more about their story. Lily was quiet for a few moments. Did they abandon me? The question hit Hannah like a blow. No. It was very complicated. Honey, your biological mother really wanted to be with you, but she couldn't. And now, your family wants to meet you. Lily was silent, absorbing the information. What if I don't want to meet them? Hannah hesitated. Then you don't have to, but I think it would be good to give it a chance. Meeting them doesn't mean you have to change anything. Lily bit her lip, thoughtful. What if they're nice? Hannah forced a smile. Then you'll have more people who love you. The girl thought for a few more seconds and then nodded. Okay, I want to meet them. Hannah let out a sigh she hadn't realized she was holding. Then let's do this together, okay? I'll be with you the whole time. Lily smiled a little and snuggled into her mother's arms. Hannah closed her eyes and hugged her tightly, as if she could protect her from everything that was to come. But deep down, she knew nothing would ever be the same again. The restaurant they had chosen for their date was one of the most sophisticated in the city. Hannah had never set foot in a place like it before. The floors were gleaming, the tables were covered with impeccable tablecloths, and the waiters seemed trained to show no emotion beyond polite formality. But none of that mattered. What really mattered was Lily. The girl held her hand tightly as they walked to their reserved table. Hannah could feel the tension in her small fingers, but to her surprise, Lily was steady. "It's okay, Mommy," Lily whispered, as if she were the one trying to calm Hannah down. They reached the table where Ryan was already waiting for them. Beside him, a middle-aged couple stood up immediately upon seeing them. The woman, with her blonde hair tied up elegantly, put her hands to her mouth, her eyes filled with tears. "Oh my God," she whispered, staring at Lily. The man beside her, who had the same shade of hair as Lily and a look of emotion in his eyes, hesitantly extended his hand. "Hannah, thank you for coming. I'm David, and this is my wife, Helen." Hannah nodded slowly, shaking his hand out of formality. Her attention was on Lily, who was looking at them both curiously. The woman knelt down to the girl's level, her voice shaking. "Hi, honey. My name is Helen. I'm your grandmother." Lily frowned, as if trying to process this. "My grandmother? Like Mommy's mother?" Helen laughed. Softly, but tears streamed down her face. "Yes, honey, just like me." David took a deep breath, his hands shaking slightly as he leaned in a little closer. "We've been looking for you for so long." Lily looked at Hannah, as if asking for permission to continue the conversation. Hannah nodded, and the girl turned her eyes back to the two of them. "Why?" Lily asked, her voice small. Helen sniffed and rubbed her hand across her eyes. "Because we never knew you existed. If we had, we would never have left your mommy alone." David added, "She loved you very much, Lily, and we're sorry we weren't there for her and for you." Lily was quiet for a moment, then asked, "What was my mom like?" Helen's face lit up at the memory. She was wonderful. She had the most beautiful smile you could ever imagine, and she was stubborn, just like you. Lily laughed softly, looking at Hannah. "I'm stubborn, aren't I, Mommy?" Hannah smiled. A little. The ice was slowly breaking. Lily started asking questions, and her grandparents answered them with affection and patience. They told stories about her mother, about how dreamy and brave she was. Hannah watched everything with mixed emotions. She didn't want to lose Lily, but in that moment, she realized that maybe she wasn't alone anymore. Maybe for the first time in a long time, she had found allies. When the conversation came to an end, David cleared his throat, turning to Hannah. "We don't want to take Lily away from you. We know you were the one who took care of her, who protected her, and we'll never try to change that." Helen added, "But we'd like to be a part of her life, if you'll let us." Hannah looked at Lily. "What do you think, daughter?" The girl smiled and nodded. "I think I want to have a grandmother and a grandfather." Hannah's heart sank, but at the same time, something inside her felt relieved. Maybe, just maybe, this was the beginning of a new opportunity for everyone. The next few days were different from anything Hannah had ever experienced. For the first time in many years, she wasn't alone. Lily's family kept their promise not to try to push her away, and little by little, they became part of their routine. Helen showed up with books, dresses, and hair bows, trying to make up for lost time. David took Lily for walks in the park, teaching her to ride a bike. But for Hannah, the biggest surprise was Ryan. He was never pushy, never pressured her, but he was by her side the whole time. "You still don't trust me completely, do you?" he asked one day as they walked to the coffee shop. Hannah sighed. "It's not that. It's just my whole life, everything I knew, changed so quickly." Ryan smiled slightly. "Sometimes change is good." Hannah didn't answer, but she knew he was right. Months later, Lily was still sleeping soundly when Hannah woke up that morning. She watched her for a while, feeling a tightness in her chest as she remembered all the difficult nights they'd spent together. But now everything was different. The small, damp house where they'd lived had given way to a simple but comfortable apartment. Working at the coffee shop was no longer her only option. Helen had helped Hannah get a technical degree, and now she worked as an administrative assistant in an office. But most importantly, she was still Lily's mother. None of that had changed. Nothing would ever change. At Christmas that year, the table was full. Helen brought out beautiful, over-the-top dishes. David laughed as he tried to teach Lily how to carve a huge piece of turkey. Ryan sat down next to Hannah, placing a wrapped gift in her hands. "For you." She looked at him suspiciously. "What is this?" "Open it and see." With trembling fingers, Hannah opened the package and found a framed photo. It was a picture of her and Lily, laughing in the park, captured without their knowledge. At the bottom was a phrase engraved in gold. "Family isn't about blood. It's about love." Tears filled her eyes. "Ryan," he smiled, "did you think I would forget how this all started?" Hannah clutched the frame to her chest and, for the first time in a long time, allowed herself to feel something she thought was impossible: security. She had found a new life. She had found a family. And deep down she knew nothing would ever be the same again. But this time it was a good thing.